Ink and imagination. Let's bring the heroes back. From the golden age to silver screen, where heroes live and villains scheme. The panels pop, the colors gleam. Mighty pens and daring hands, dreams are drawn across the land. Ink and imagination, where legends leap off every page. Ink and imagination, the art of heroes through the age. From pulp to power, capes to crime, every tale transcends its time. Stories bold, emotions grand, a pencil sparks across the land. From the first sketch to the final splash page, these are the tales that shaped our age. Ink and imagination, turning dreams to inspiration. Ink and imagination, celebrating every creation. Panels flash and pages turn, the fire of fandom starts to burn. Ink and imagination.
Welcome back to Ink and Imagination, the podcast where we trace the history of comics from the inky origins to the modern day marvels. I'm your host, Alex K. Cossa. Today, we're winding the clock back more than a century to cobbled streets, gas lamps, and printing presses. Before superheroes soared and speech bubbles shouted, "Pow!" Britain had its own comic revolution. One built not on capes, but on caricature, class, and the power of laughter. This is a story of how the British comics boom of the 1890s began, and how decades of satire, social change, and scrappy entrepreneurship laid the groundwork for an art form that would shape the nation's imagination. So lace up your boots, grab a penny, and follow me back to the Victorian age of comic papers. To understand the comics boom of the 1890s, we need to start in the decades before, when comics didn't yet exist. In early 19th century Britain, humour wasn't printed for the masses, it was performed. Music halls, penny theatres, street ballads, but by the 1830s and 1840s, something had begun to change. Cheap printing technology and a growing middle class created an appetite for satire in print. The leading light of this new world was Punch magazine, launched in 1841 by Henry Mayhew and Ebenezer Landels. Punch was the satirical magazine of Victorian Britain, clever, biting, and politically astute. Its cartoons skewered politicians, aristocrats, and cultural fads with an elegant wit. And although it wasn't a comic in the modern sense, Punch did something revolutionary. It made illustrated humor a weekly institution. Punch's artists, including John Leech, George du Maurier, and later Sir John Tenniel, turned visual satire into social commentary. Tenniel's work for Punch even shaped how Britain imagined characters like John Bull and Mr. Punch himself, the nation's satirical conscience. Punch's success proved there was a market for laughter on paper, but for decades it was aimed squarely at the middle and upper classes, readers who could afford sixpence for clever wit. The working class, meanwhile, were reading something very different. By the 1860s and 70s, the printing press had gone industrial. Steam-powered machines churned out thousands of sheets per hour. At the same time, Britain's Elementary Education Act of 1870 made schooling and literacy a right, not a privilege. Suddenly, millions of children and workers could read, and they wanted something cheap and fun to read. And that's where the penny dreadfuls came in. Serialized adventure tales, crime stories, gothic horrors, all sold for a penny. Titles like The String of Pearls, introducing Sweeney Todd, and Varney the Vampire thrilled a generation. But amidst all this blood and thunder, a different kind of cheap entertainment began to emerge. Something lighter, quicker, funnier, the humorous penny weeklies. In 1884, a comic paper appeared that would change everything. Ali Sloper's Half Holiday. It starred a recurring character, Ali Sloper, a lazy, lovable scoundrel who always tried to avoid work, dodge rent, and sneak a free pint. Created by Charles Ross and drawn by W. G. Baxter and later W. F. Thomas, Ali Sloper became Britain's first recurring illustrated character, and arguably the world's first comic star. He wasn't a hero in a traditional sense. He was a tramp, a trickster, a survivor. But the working class readers saw themselves in him. Every issue was full of slapstick gags, rhyming jokes, cartoons that mirrored everyday Victorian life, from the pub to the pawn shop. And Half Holiday was a sensation. It sold hundreds of thousands of copies weekly, inspired stage plays, postcards, toys, even a board game. You could say Ali Sloper was Britain's first comic book celebrity. By the late 1880s, publishers were paying attention, and one man, Alfred Harmsworth, saw the potential to turn comics into a business empire. In 1888, he launched Comic Cuts, a weekly humor paper priced at just a penny. It was the first mass-produced family-friendly comic paper. Each issue featured pages of cartoons, jokes, and short illustrated stories. Harmsworth's secret was volume. Cheap printing, high circulation, and relentless promotion. Comic Cuts was followed by Illustrated Chips in 1890, another weekly full of slapstick gags, often parodying the upper classes and authority figures. These papers weren't polished like Punch. They were rowdy, anarchic, and gleefully silly. But that was the point. They were for everyone. By the early 1890s, Comic Cuts sold over 300,000 copies a week, a staggering number for the time. This success sparked a full-blown boom. Between 1890 and 1900, the comic press exploded. Dozens of new titles flooded the market. Funny Cuts, Jester, Lot of Fun, Scraps, Chips, and more. At the heart of this boom was one simple formula: cheap plus funny plus relatable. Perhaps the most famous product of this era came in 1896 in Illustrated Chips. Wary Willie and Tired Tom, two tramp characters always down on their luck, always scheming, and always failing spectacularly. They became icons of British comedy, running for over half a century until 1953. Their humour, slapstick, anarchic, and gently mocking authority defined the British comic spirit. And across these papers, certain themes emerged: mocking the rich and pompous, celebrating the underdogs and tricksters, using visual gags, rhyming captions, and sequential storytelling, the seeds of modern comic strips. These papers weren't just entertainment, they were social mirrors, showing the struggles and humor of working class life with cheek and charm. So, why did it happen then, the 1890s? It was a perfect storm. Industrial printing made mass production cheap, rising literacy created a hungry audience, urbanization packed millions into cities craving amusement, and a class-conscious society gave endless fuel for satire. Publishers like Harmsworth didn't just sell jokes. they sold belonging. Owning a comic paper each week was a small joy in hard times. And crucially, the comics of the 1890s established a template for the next century. Weekly issues, recurring characters, gag-driven strips, and an irreverent tone that never quite went away. You can draw a direct line from Weary Willie and Tired Tom to the Beano's Dennis the Menace, or even to Viz's crude satire a century later. By the early 1900s, the first great comics boom began to fade. The market was saturated, and readers' tastes evolved. Story papers, adventure weeklies, and girls' magazines began to rise. But the impact of the 1890s never vanished. The format, the tone, and the working class voice established by those early humour papers became the backbone of British popular culture. And when the Dandy and the Beano launched in the 1930s, they weren't inventing a new art form, they were refining one that had been honed for 50 years. The British comics boom of the 1890s wasn't about superheroes or cosmic battles. It was about survival, laughter, and a nation finding joy in its own absurdities. From Ali Sloper to Weary Willie, these early characters made Britain laugh and gave birth to a storytelling tradition that still lives on today. Next time on Ink and Imagination, maybe we'll leap ahead to another revolution, the birth of 2000 AD and the anti-establishment energy of British comics in the 1970s, perhaps. Maybe we'll look again at another era of American comics or Canadian comics. But until then, remember, every art form starts with a laugh, a sketch, and an idea too good to stay in one person's head. I was Alex K. Cossa, and this has been Ink and Imagination.
From the golden age to silver screen, where heroes live and villains scheme, the panels pop, the colors gleam, mighty pens and daring hands, dreams are drawn across the land. Ink and imagination, where legends leap off every page. Ink and imagination, the art of heroes through the age. From pulp to power, capes to crime, every tale transcends its time. Stories bold, emotions grand, a pencil sparks across the land. From the first sketch to the final splash page, these are the tales that shaped our age. Ink and imagination, turning dreams to inspiration. Ink and imagination, celebrating every creation. Panels flash and pages turn, the fire of fandom starts to burn. Ink and imagination.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.